Tudor has released the Ranger in 36mm. And I'm here wondering to myself, is this too little too late or not little enough? Well, it's 2025, the end of the year rolled around and they dropped it. Here it is, the Ranger 36mm. So it's 36mm in diameter, 44mm lug to lug, 11mm thick with a 19mm lug width here. And I have to say, my first impression upon taking it out of the packaging was, this watch doesn't look very small at all. It's actually quite solid, as you would expect from a modern Tudor. It's got thick sides, big thick lugs, a wide bezel. It almost doesn't read like a 36mm watch at all. It does fit very nicely like a 36mm watch, but once again, it doesn't have that small sort of vintage feeling. So even in bringing it down in size, you're not getting that vintage Tudor Ranger feel. That's just probably not going to happen. But I wonder if they went further, if they went to 34mm. Would that have done it? 34mm is now more acceptable as a diameter. So in 2025, we actually saw several 34mm watches come out. And I wonder if, to get that feeling of like that true sort of vintage inspired watch, that's maybe where Tudor needed to go with this. Bring it down even further to 34, somehow thin it out even more. If they have dropped the 36 back in 2022, it would have been more exciting back then. 36mm watches were still a little bit less like widely accepted. Bearing in mind that Tudor actually already had a 36mm watch in the Black Bay 36, which had kind of gone unnoticed, and maybe that's why they didn't do it back then. But they did it now, okay? We got it, it's the 36mm watch, and like I said, it wears very well, but it's just not that little vintage watch maybe you're hoping for. It's a solid, beefy sport watch. But in addition to bringing out the 36mm case, they also dropped a new dial color, which frankly is the less expected of the new thing. So here you can see it. This is Dune White. It's inspired by the Dakar Rally race and the sort of expedition inspiration behind the Ranger line to begin with. It's an appealing color. I like that they stuck with an earth tone, that it's sandy. It feels like it's still about exploration, like it's still about the purpose of that watch. You know, earlier this year, we saw the Black Bay 54 come out in Lagoon Blue, which was a fashion color. I'm glad that they didn't do that here. This feels in the correct spirit. So there's some changes to the dial as well, obviously. So the numerals are printed in black, the indices around the edge is printed in black, the hands are framed in black. So for lume, you have small little dots that go around the edge, sort of where like the 5-minute mark would be. They match the dial color pretty closely, so it actually sort of makes a gap to the eye along that index, which I'm not 100% sure if I love. But what it also has done is really flattened out the dial. You know, when they print lume, like on the black dial model, which unfortunately I don't have here, but I am familiar with the 39mm model in particular, they have to build up that printing. You know, you have to apply several layers of lume in order to get that kind of really good potency. And because of that, you get some dimensionality to it. You get a little bit of a rounding along the very edge of the numerals. It adds a little bit of texture and a little bit of depth. And I feel like this dial is just really missing that. The color is nice, but the dial itself just doesn't excite me. Something that I would love to see Tudor do, and I actually think I said this when they brought out the 39, is to use the applied ceramic lume that they used on the black dial Black Bay Pro when they first came out with it. It's really cool material. It looks like pad printing from above, but it adds dimensionality. It literally, you can see it glow from the side. So if they put that on the black dial model, it would have just added some depth and texture and frankly, a little bit of like a higher end feature as well. That wouldn't have made sense on this dial because you have the black numerals, but similarly, earlier this year, they brought out the Black Bay Pro Polar, so really clean white dial on that one. And they used applied indices with black surrounds. And I think that would have worked really nicely here. 12, 3, 6, 9 in black surrounds with lume fill. Just get that depth that this dial is missing. So on my 6.75-inch wrist, I think this watch wears very nicely. You know, a 36mm diameter fits me well. It's a number that I actually prefer on watches. Sort of 36 to 38 is my preferred range for a three-hand watch. So it's right in my sweet spot. On the fabric, it wears a little tall because the fabric does go underneath it, but on the bracelet, it actually wears thinner than the numbers suggest, and that's because those numbers include the crystal as well as this bold case back. So if you measure it kind of edge to edge here, it's more like a 9mm watch. So it's pretty flat and pretty comfortable. Like I said, 19mm lugs, it has a T-fit clasp, it has the modern non-rivet bracelet for those of you who don't like the rivets. I'm not one of those, but in terms of the fit, while I really like it, I had to compare it to my personal favorite Tudor, the Tudor that I wear myself. and that would be the Black Bay 54. So this came out actually a year after the 39. And as you know, this is like the best wearing dive watch ever. It's 37 millimeters with a 20 millimeter lug and a 45.8 millimeter lug to lug here. And what makes this watch wear so exceptionally is that the profile on it is just different. The profile on this watch, as well as many of the other Black Bays and watches sort of in this style, Tudor sort of uses a similar silhouette on all of their lines. This one's thinner. It comes to less of a downward turn. It's more vintage feeling for, kind of lack of a better word. And because of that, it just wears perfectly. It's technically thicker than the 36 by half a millimeter, but you wouldn't know it on the wrist. It really doesn't wear that way. So what does that mean for the Ranger? Well, I guess I just wish that they had found some way to make it stand out amongst the collection. Similarly, there are the Black Bay 36s, which originally came out in 2018. They revived them recently, now called the Black Bay 136. This is an older one with an ETA. These are virtually like the same dimensions as the Ranger 36, except somehow they're half a millimeter thinner. And for the record, these all use the same movement, the MT 5400. And so that kind of leads me back to, the beginning. I said too little, too late, or not little enough. And I think my argument for a 34 millimeter watch, maybe you hate it. I think there's some sense there. But what I think this watch really needs is sort of like a place in Tudor's collection. Because right now, what it is really just an entry point. It's the least expensive watch with their in-house movement. And that is compelling. Their in-house movements are impressive. They're chronometer rated, they have long power reserves, they're free sprung balances. There's a lot to like about Tudor's movements / Kinesi movements. But I wonder just, is that enough? This is essentially the exact same watch as the Black Bay 36, just with a different dial, a flatter dial, and a printed dial at that. And the price tag, while entry for this, isn't an entry price tag. On the strap, this is coming in at $3,350, and on the bracelet, it's $3,700. So it's a $3,000 watch. And at $3,000, you're welcome to have a lot of expectations for your watch. And I just think that this isn't quite hitting that yet. For reference, when they came out a few years ago, the original, the 39, they were $2,750 around there on the strap. Still expensive, but under $3,000, it felt like a more compelling way to get into an in-house movement. So what this watch just needs, it's a specialty. It's something. The Black Bay Pro had the lume, it had the GMT. The Pelagos 39 is titanium. The Black Bay 54 is just perfect, if you will. But the Ranger right now just needs something. So that's my thoughts on the Ranger 36 millimeters in 2025. I really want to know what you think. Where does the Ranger fit into the Tudor collection now, and where is it going to be in the future? Let us know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you don't mind, and please come to Warning Women Daily for more news and reviews about watches.